give us an overview of Starfish. What do we need to know?
Starfish is the story of Ellie's journey. And Ellie is 11, about to be 12, and she is bullied relentlessly because she's fat. And I do use the word fat because fat should be a descriptor word, just like tall or blonde. It should not be an insult. And we have made it that in our culture. When you say you're fat, you're saying other things. You're saying ugly, stupid, blah, blah, blah. But she's bullied relentlessly because she's fat. And she's not just bullied at school, which a lot of people, when they hear the word bullying, think of school. But she's bullied by society, and she's bullied at home. And, there are certain places you expect to be safe in the world, or you at least hope to be safe in the world, and that is especially home. And when home isn't a safe place, it's a totally different dynamic for a child. And it's not that it wasn't physically safe for her. It wasn't an emotionally safe place for her. And so anyway, in this journey, she goes from being bullied relentlessly to starting to realize that maybe there's something wrong with the people who are so cruel instead of something being wrong with her. And then she advances to realizing that she has the right to take up her place and space in the world and to be heard and to be seen. And that's what starfishing is. It's all about stretching out and being who you are, and being happy to be who you are, and being happy with who you are. And if you do some Google searches, you'll find that there are very few middle grade books on fat positivity. They're very, very hard to find. Most of the fat positivity books you're going to find are YA. And so the kids are experiencing this when they're in, elementary, junior high. That is when the majority of the bullying is really bad. And I think everybody can attest that junior high, if we could just skip over junior high, we'd all be better off psychologically. Junior high is a horrible time in your life. I don't know if anybody feels like they fit in junior high, but
I myself was extremely attractive and beloved by all 3 years of junior high. It was incredible.
All 3 years. It's funny because at my school it was 2 years. So when people say 3, I'm like, did you flunk? But no, I know what you
Just an extra year of pain, because that was not the experience. It was I had the ridiculous acne and everything else going on, and the whole place. Everybody stinks. Nobody knows how yet to do proper hygiene. It's just a horrendous time to be alive.
It's the worst. It really is. Yeah, but junior high in my school was just 7th and 8th grade. So when people say 3 years, I'm like, did you flunk? And then I think, oh yeah, you're in the 6, 7, 8 people or whatever, or 5, 6, 7. I've heard some of them are, but yeah. So, but that's what it's about. It's about her journey.
So, lots to unpack. Let's start with why, if you could only publish one book, why is this the book you want the world to say, oh, Lisa Fipps was here, she wrote Starfish?
I think because, first of all, there's just so few books like this out there for kids. And yet, I think it's 70% of Americans are fat. And yet, if you look at social media or literature, you would think like it was 5%. If you looked at representation, right? I mean, tell me 10, skinny or average size actresses, and you can whip them off. And then tell me 10 that are fat, like not just Hollywood fat, which is what, size 4 and up is, in Hollywood. But seriously, tell me 10 that are fat. So there's over 70% of Americans are fat, and yet where's that representation? It's not in clothing. It's not in the media. It's, you look on Instagram, it's all about, skinny, beautiful people. It's not about your normal people. And so it's just, it's so needed because there's so little of it out there. That's one reason. Another reason is because I don't think I was, well, I know I was pretty bold. I was very real and authentic about what it's like to be a fat person. And it's kind of funny. I don't know if the word funny is right. I say the word funny for everything, but it's odd, funny, unusual, interesting, whatever you want to say. When I get reviews and people say, "Did you read my diary?" Because they feel like, and they'll tell me that's exactly what happened. I had one reader say, "I remember looking at my shadow and realizing it was bigger than everybody else's and always being ashamed of my shadow." I mean, I tried to put in everything that I knew a fat person would go, "Yep, yep," because I'd even done this little poll, very unscientific, but with my Facebook friends years ago. And I was just like, if you've been struggled with your weight or your body image, feel free to message me. You don't have to put this out there in public, but tell me some of the worst things people ever said or did to you. And oh my God, it's the most messages I've ever received on anything in Facebook. And people just, they're mothers, their grandmothers, some of them were just in college, but I mean, they're all ages. But they had these things that just still haunt them. And I think if this could be stopped, like just stopped, if we could just stop this madness of being so cruel to people just because they weigh more, I think of all the people who would have better lives, I mean, I had someone the other day who had read the book and she reviewed it and she gave it a good review, but then she sent me a private message and she said, "I have to admit that there was a part of me that was hoping that she would lose weight in it and then she could be okay, because I keep hoping that for myself." And I was just like, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's haunting. Those things that people do to you as children can stay with you. And especially when it's about your body, and so that's another reason. And I think the third reason is just because as a child, and when I was enduring all the bullying, I didn't stand up. I didn't speak out. I didn't Starfish, and I regret it. And I didn't for other reasons, which I'm not going to go into on this podcast. But I thought, if this is the thing you get a do-over, like in Groundhog Day, if you get a do-over day, I want to go back and I want to do that over and I want to starfish. And maybe I could have, changed a lot of people around me as well as myself. And so for all those reasons and some more is why this book means so much to me, because it's one thing to tell a story that's completely fiction, and it's another thing to tell a story that's fiction based on a lot of what's happened to you. It's much more personal, and therefore I think it just means something different.
So is it to be Alligator People and Robot Bees next book? Or are you thinking you're going to stay with the personal?
Actually, for upcoming books, I'm working on a few, and so just check my social media for any announcements about what I'm doing next. But there will always be a part of me in every book. I think that's true of all writers if they really admit it. I don't know. I think it was, it was an author that I did a panel with recently, who said, you know, you always think, oh, this is completely fiction. And you start writing and then you go, oh, I'm tapping into this that happened. Oh, I'm tapping into this that happened to me. Oh, I'm tapping into this. Because writers, you know, to get that emotional truth in writing, because even if it's fiction, you have to have an emotional truth. To get an emotional truth in writing, you normally have had to experience that, you know? And I know, like, our good friend Shannon Alexander and her books were based on the loss of her friend who died of cancer. So, you know, she had that emotional well to be able to write this fictional story. I mean, what happened in her two books were not what happened in real life with her friend who died, but it was still a cancer story, and it was still a story of loss and how you go on after loss. And I think that's what writers do, don't we? Don't we kind of, we have this well and we dip out of it all the time.
Yeah, I think so. I make the glib joke about alligator people and giant robot bees, but there are chapters in both of those books I could not read out loud to a group of students, or I would cry all over myself. But my heart's in there. I understand.
Yes.
Let me ask us, I'd read that you, and I've heard you talk about this, that you want to give, for one, who's the ideal reader for this story, but you want to give the courage and tools that you hope to impart to them to confront bullies. So what tools do you hope to impart, and what difference do you think it would have made for you if you could go back, quantum leap back into an earlier version of yourself and Starfish? So ideal reader, and what do you hope that this will do for them?
The ideal reader is everyone. And I know that sounds like, oh, sure, Lisa. but really, and the reason I say that, it's for children for sure. It's written for middle graders. But, kids who are older, who have younger siblings who are fat, this is a great book for them to totally understand what's going on with their brother or sister or whatever. And then I definitely want parents reading it, because one of the things in the book is all the missteps that Ellie's mom makes in trying to deal with, fix her. And parents who have fat children, especially if the parents aren't fat themselves, I don't believe they truly intend to hurt their children, but they unknowingly do. And almost every comment that I've gotten in private from people who've read Starfish are about what their parents have said to them. And it's almost like 95%. And parents make a lot of missteps when it comes to dealing with fat children. And so definitely parents. But I'd also like to see pediatricians read it, because healthcare when you're fat is a whole other game. It's a whole other universe. It's a whole other everything. And it wasn't until I was an adult and learned to start standing up for myself in healthcare that I even realized how bad my healthcare had been over the years. You're going to see something flip over. I've got to plug in my laptop. It's dying. But anyway, so I really like that. So if I could get middle graders, parents, and pediatricians to read it, I'd be happy. But, but I really think, and I think I got this, someone said to me today, I just want all adults who deal with children to read it. And I think it's because, especially if you've never been fat, if you've never dealt with your weight, if you've never been bullied about your weight, you have no idea what all those jokes, everybody calls it a joke, all those jokes do to a person psychologically. You have no idea how hurtful they are and how long they last. And So I think that was a two-part question. One was my audience. What was the other one?
Oh, it was a ridiculous
Sorry.
rambling question. No one could have answered it. The ideal audience. Then the second question is if you could reach that audience and you can give them the tools that they need and the courage to stand up, what would that do for them? And what would it have done for you if you'd had this book that taught you to starfish when it mattered? Not that it doesn't matter now, but at this time you're expressing regret for having that done.
Right. So part of the toolbox is that you have the right to say no to all of this bullying. You don't have to put up with that. You know, you might have to tell your parents, and they might have to tell the principal and the teacher, and then you might have to take it up to the superintendent or the school board, but you keep going until people hear you and stop. You know, you have that right. And that's for anybody. I mean, what I say about Starfish as well is that, yes, it's about a fat girl, but really it's translatable to anyone who has been bullied for any reason. This is translatable to anyone who's been bullied because they're LGBTQ, because they're of a different race. You know, whenever you're treated horribly and made to feel like a non-person, this is what this is about. This is about, you can stand up to all of that, and you have a right to say no to it. And you have a right to say, I'm not putting up with that anymore. I deserve better. And you also have a right to ask for help. And I think that's the important part of the therapy, her going to therapy, is that, you know, kids often don't talk to their parents about things that are happening at school. I never did. I never came home and said, hey, Mom, someone made fun of me today because I'm fat. Never did that. First of all, because it's embarrassing, you know. Second of all, she had her own problems. She was a single mom, you know.
I was never that thoughtful toward my parents have their own problems. Good for you. You're a better child than I was.
You know what? I think it's just because that was just sort of my role in the family was, even though I was the youngest, my role in the family was understanding where my mom was emotionally all the time. I don't know, I'm an empath, so I just picked up on that stuff. But, you know, so, and the other thing is when you have been bullied so much and you've dealt with so much hatred for so long, that when you start dealing with it, it's going to get kind of messy. You know, it's not clean and easy, and it's not pretty. The emotions that you uncover and the feelings that you have. And it helps to have someone, a professional, to guide you through that. And so I think another tool that they get, other than, you know, they've got standing up for themselves and saying, no, I don't deserve this, I'm not going to put up with it, is learning how to reach out for help. I think that's a skill every person on the planet needs to have, because, you know, we all have to have help sometime, from somewhere, somehow. I mean, when, you know, you've got a child who's an addict, you've got a dad who has cancer or whatever. I mean, think of all the things that you cannot handle by yourself. And so learning how to say, I can't do this alone, I need help, is a huge thing to have in your toolbox. And I think another one is just having intrinsic self-value. Because if you don't, it's hard for you to, even if you succeed in life, it's hard for you to feel that happiness, that joy, that contentment. And I think if you look at like Hollywood people, right, they have tons of money, they have all this fame, and, you know, houses, they have material possessions, they have all this. And so many of them, you can tell, struggle with intrinsic self-value and self-worth, or they wouldn't be doing the things that they do that make the news, right? They wouldn't be, I'm not even going to name them all because I'm not trying to shame anybody. I'm just saying you see it. Just because you're successful doesn't mean you have self-value or self-worth. It just, and so I think knowing your self-value and self-worth is a huge tool to have in your toolbox. So those are the three ones that I think would probably be my top for wanting them to have. And I think if I could have those tools, and if I could go back, I could do the Michael J. Fox go back in time thing or whatever. I think I would have the tool that I think would have helped me the most would have just been talking about it. I never talked about it. I never talked about anything that happened to me. And I had a pretty traumatic childhood, lots of different child traumas, and I never talked about any of it. And so I think being able to talk about it is the first and biggest step that you have to make for all the other steps. You know, you have to start talking about it to be able to stop it. You have to start talking about it to reach out to get help. You know, so I think being able to talk about it is also a big deal. And that's probably what I needed most as a kid.
So when, and this might be too personal a question, in which case just tell me, shut up, Rob. You know how to do that. You've done it plenty. It's been a very necessary skill these past 10 years. But when did you become aware of your intrinsic self-worth, and how did you go about that?
That's a really good question. You know, for me, because of my past, it will be a lifetime journey. And I'm trying not to get too deep or too personal, because I don't want us to get off track of Starfish and the
available March 9th, yes.
I love that. That's so funny. But you know, like I referenced a few minutes ago, I had a very traumatic childhood. So a lot of bad things to deal with, very like onion layery stuff. You know, it wasn't just one thing, it was this, and it was this, and it was this, and it was this. And so for me, I mean, I compared to where I was even 3 years ago, yeah, I have intrinsic value because I'm seeking it. You know, I'm seeking the full enchilada, right? The whole enchilada. But I think until I die, I'll probably be working on all those things that happened when I was little, because there were so many things, and you know, unpacking them all takes so much time and so much energy. And not that I'm not doing that, but is this making any sense at all?
It does. I was hoping you had a take two of these and call me in the morning type answer, but it sounds like it's a lot of deep personal work that's ongoing.
Yeah.
What are the easy answers, Lisa? I don't like work.
You know you're talking to the girl who, when the microwave has 10 seconds left, goes, it's close enough, and stops it, because I have no patience. None. I have coined the phrase, and I want to get rich on it someday, is patience is a virtue, impatience is a gift, and I'm gifted. That's my phrase. And but you know, like Ellie, though, you know, she had such a great support system with her dad, and other than her weight, you know, she had it a lot easier than little Lisa did, you know. So I think that's why, you know, it's not an easy journey for me. I wish it was like flip of a switch. That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Without spoiling, and I'm all aware that not only can I spoil the current version of the book, but also previous versions. I've got all kinds of spoilers, so I got to be careful when I talk about the plot. But early on, early enough that I feel to spoil. Then I want to talk about writing poetry. But as far as just the plot goes, early on, we see her part of her support system being stripped away. Her friend is moving, so that's a big event. Why is that the place to start this book?
That was intentional, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe it. I remember when it wasn't.
It's intentional because studies show that fat people have fewer friends. And that is because studies show, I mean, I don't make this up. That's why I keep saying studies show. Studies show that children, even in preschool, get the message that it's not cool to hang around fat people and fat people are bad, that they're lazy and they're dumb and ugly. Fat people don't normally have a huge support system of friendship, you know? And so she has one really good friend, and if that friend moves away, whoa, you know, that's like taking the rug out from underneath her. And so that's why I wanted to start with that. I wanted to torture my character that way. As we writers say, we torture our characters. But basically it's just being real. You know, if you have very few friends and or just one really good friend, and they move away, then where are you? You know? So.
I had one really good friend in middle school who moved away. It's a hard moment.
It is.
Fortunately, he moved back, and I made some other friends. But that is a lonely day. The day that your one good friend, when you're going through something as traumatic as adolescence, moves away.
Yep, exactly. When you lose what you think is a friend, or you lose a friend, it's devastating, especially to children. It's hard enough to lose a friend when you're an adult. You know, if they pass away, they move away, whatever. But when you're a child, that's your world, right? As you disconnect from your parent and you connect with friends, their friends move away, you know, it changes who you are. It changes your identity. It changes your support system. It changes everything.